Dear students, after discussing the theoretical part of the control, now we are going to have a look at the practical part of the control. In the practical part of the control, we will see how we can enable the managers to effectively control the organizational activities because a large number of controlling techniques are available. Which technique should be used? It is a very important decision for the manager, and for making it worthwhile, a manager should know these techniques and in which situation it should be applied. It's a very important kind of choice for a manager. Basically, there are two types of techniques which are used for controlling purposes. These are the traditional techniques as well as the modern techniques of control. The traditional techniques are very large in number. You can see here that it is done through personal observations, budgeting, through break-even analysis, auditing, financial ratio analysis, statistical data and report, by setting examples, by standard costing, and also through the written instructions. These techniques are very important in order to understand these techniques in their proper format. Let us have a look at these techniques individually, and we should also try to understand one thing here, that what kind of organizations we are belonging to, there remains the application of a particular technique. First of all, some techniques are very common which can be exercised in almost all the organizations. As such, there is no restriction, but it is the job of the manager to decide that which technique is fitting to his business organization. As far as the personal observation is concerned, personal observation, dear students, is the most traditional method of control. Some people, however, say that it is very time consuming and not suitable for all kinds of jobs, but even then, it has been noticed invariably that the personal observations help the managers to collect the first hand information, as it creates a psychological pressure on the employees to perform well, as they are aware that they are being observed personally at their job. So if this kind of tendency arises, if this kind of feeling arises in the minds of the employees, then I'm sure that they will be able to work with their full capacity and capability. It is just like when we are under CCTV surveillance at that particular place, we become cautious, we become conscious, we become alert. So the personal observation is a way in which the employees become alert, and they don't indulge into any kind of practice which is against the purpose of the organization, and they always try to make sure that they are helping the organization to achieve the goals for which the organization has come into picture. Another important traditional technique, students, which is very important, I tell you, is the budget. Budget is a important way to control the affairs of the organization. Budgetary control or budget, let us understand first what is budget, then we will see how this control is exercised. For a common man's point of view, from the common man's point of view, budget is derived from the French word budget, which means small leather bag. Budget, students, is a financial and quantitative statement. It is a plan for income or outgoing or expenditure, or both, of money, personal purchase items, sales items, or any other entity about which the manager believes that determining the future course of action will assist in the managerial efforts. So, in short, we can say that budget is a preparation of the budget is a systematic activity on the part of the organization, because it is prepared for income and expenditure both. And it is something which acts as a guidance and a means of comparison also for the organizations, because they can take into consideration the or they can make comparison of the actual with the estimated ones through the budgetary control. Budgeting control is a tool which is used by the management to obtain the objectives which are expressed in the form of budget. According to J. Beatty, budgeting control is a system which uses budget as a means of planning. As per the R.C. Davis, budgetary control is an important means of establishing accountability in the organization. It is applied to a system of management, and accordingly, control is exercised by which all operations and output are forecast as far as possible, and the actual results, when known, are compared with the budgeted estimates. And of course, the doors for corrections are opened after this exercise. Let us have a quick look at this budgetary control, students. The activities of the organizations as per the department or as per the section wise are presented through budgetary control, and budget gives the extent of expenditure through which the control is to be achieved in the organization. The coordination of the various departmental activities helps to prepare the predetermined standards, and also it makes it possible to have clear cut and specific requirement of the organization's quantitative in quantitative terms in the organization, and it determines the deviations by comparisons, and causes of such deviations are also taken into consideration through the budgetary control exercise. This budgetary it is the budgetary control which recommends and implements the corrective actions whenever required in the business. And as we know that the future is planned on the basis of the past experiences, recording the present performance for comparing purpose with the predetermined standards is possible through the budgetary control. You can have a quick look at the advantages of budgetary control. I want to tell you here that the budgetary control is one of the important ways through which the affairs of the organization are handled in a much and systematic form. The important points which we can take into consideration regarding the budgetary control consists of the tool for planning the activities. The activities of the business are to be planned, and the planning of these activities will become very easy, will become very convenient for organizations if effective budgetary control mechanism has been in place. And another important advantage of the budgetary control is that it is just thinking in advance. We decide in advance for future, and when we decide in advance for future, I tell you one thing here, that we normally do not make mistakes in our day-to-day affairs of the organization. And the budgetary control makes the coordination of the efforts of the organization possible in simplified way. And one important thing that if not discussed will remain in this discussion will remain incomplete about the advantages of the budgetary control, and that is the control of the expenditure itself. The budgetary control makes it possible that the expenditure is controlled along with other activities. The expenditure is controlled itself also. And the budgetary control encourages the exchange of information in the organization. And the fixation of responsibility is also done. It can be very easily identify that who is the responsible person for any lapse which has taken place in organization. The fixation of responsibility is only possible through the budgetary control mechanism because it ensures proper communication, and also the financial difficulties of the organization are solved in a systematic way in the organization. The budgetary control makes the delegation of authority as an important function of management easy. Through the budgetary control, the organization can plan about the authority responsibility relationship, and then the responsibility and authority can be given in the best hands. Budgetary control promotes balanced activities, and better utilization of the resources is possible through the budgetary control, and also it promotes efficiency in the organization. When all kinds of controls are there, there is no point of confusion about its role, that it promotes efficiency. And when we are able to promote efficiency in the organization, it means that we are going to increase our profitability and we are able to achieve our goals in organization. The criteria of examination is the budgetary control, because we arrive at a systematic destination because by way of making different kinds of corrections side by side, we are able to manage the affairs of organization in a much systematic format. And the organizations by and large do not indulge into any kind of mismanagement because of the budgetary control exercise. So this was the brief discussion about the advantages of the budgetary control. Friends, there are some disadvantages, limitations, or you can call as the problems of the budgetary control. But I tell you, these problems, these limitations, and these disadvantages of the budgetary control are not going to have a serious impact on the policy of management to exercise the budgetary control mechanism in the organization, because the advantages of the budgetary control always overpower the disadvantages. Let us see what kind of facts are there which are against the policy of the organization, where the people feel that it is not serving the purpose. And these problems, these issues, these limitations of the budgetary control, they will give the solution. The solution of the problem is hidden in this point itself, like inaccuracy. People say that because the estimations are not always going to happen 100%, but and they say that then the results may be wrong also. Inaccuracies may be there because estimations always may not be true, but by and large, it is not a point to just take into consideration for the purpose of or over the benefits of the budget. Then some people say that personal biases, some non-availability of the cooperation from the employees because of rigidity, because of the results are not available, and because of the consistency, because of the time-consuming process, ineffective budgetary control, discouraging these initiatives, and a lot of paperwork. There are people who are averse to the idea of budgetary control. But I want to tell you here one thing about the budgetary control as an important means of control process in the organization. Of course, these issues are there, but these issues do not carry any special merit. And we have to see, we are going to make a comparison of the good points and the bad points against the budgetary control, and we find that budgetary control makes things easy, simple, comparable. In the absence of budgetary control, we won't be able to find out the difference between the actuals and the estimated cost. Well, friend, after discussing the important aspects pertaining to the budgetary control, we should also see that there are some essentials of the effective budgetary control system, which can be discussed in the light of the efficient organization. When there is we want to have effective system in organization, there is a need of efficient organization, and there is efficient or effective budgeting if efficient organization is there. So for making budgetary control system as important, we need to have efficient organization. Not only the efficient organization is required, the organizations can think of preparing the master budget too, so that a comprehensive idea about the overall activities of the organization can be seen at one place. And also, there is another important essential of effective budgetary control system, that is the quick reporting. The reporting should be done instantly before it becomes late, because if it becomes late, then the motive of the control will be defeated. And of course, the flexibility is very important for effective budgetary control system, because rigidity, as we have seen in case of other functions of management also, rigidity brings some kind of failure, some kind of unhealthy kind of situation in the organization. So it is important. Also, if you want to make the budgeting system or budgetary control exercise successful, we need the support of the top management, because it is the top management students who will initiate this process, and if they will be supporting it, then the organizations will be able to manage the affairs at the middle or the lower level. And apart from this, the requirement of the effectiveness lies in the reasonable assumptions. We should always assume that good things are going to happen in the organization. So, if we decide in advance that nothing fruitful is going to happen, I tell you, in reality also, nothing fruitful will happen. We want to ensure a complete system. We want to have a complete organization. We should also believe in the reward and punishment approach. The organizations which believe in the reward and punishment approach, they are successful in the long run. And that is why this reward and punishment is also considered as an effective mechanism for making budgetary system as an efficient system in the organization. And students, the authority is something which should be in appropriate form, because in the absence of appropriate authority, the purpose, the effectiveness of the budgeting system will not exist. So that is why it is also considered as an essential aspect of the effective budgeting system, that is the appropriate authority. Because a person cannot work without an authority in the organization. So if we give all employees a responsibility and we don't give them authority, they will not be able to take any important decision. For a decision-making process to be effective, what important is that there should be appropriate authority to persons working at different levels, so that they could take important decisions to control the overall affairs of the organization in such a way that the motive for which the organization has come into existence are clear, are understandable, are not going to cause any kind of damage to the existing system. Friends, now, after having a look at this kind of important discussion about the budgetary control, Now we are going to become more specific and we are going to see the different types of budgets which are prepared by the organizations. The organizations prepare different budgets like the master budget, sales budget, cash budget, time and material budget, selling and distribution cost budget, balance sheet budget, supplies budget, production cost budget, production overhead budget, research and development budget, and also the physical property budget along with the master budget. So these are the different types of budgets which are prepared, students, for the different organizations. Now it will be worthwhile for us to look at these budgets individually so that we are able to find out that what kind of requirement lies in organization, how the, if we are looking forward for the success of the organization, we have to make sure that company is able to take into consideration all important activities in its proper way so that the benefits could be achieved, so that the goals of the organization are achieved. So these types of budgets are now being taken individually for detailed knowledge. You can see, first I am taking here the most important types of budgets, though there are many. I am taking only those types of budgets which are important, which are in fact needed to be understood here, needed to be discussed here. First of all, let us look at the sales budget. The sales budget is a sales program and plans for developing sales in the organization. It shows the sales potential in terms of quantity, value, product, etc. In case of the sales budget, students, sales forecasting is the basis for preparing this budget. Apart from the sales budget, another important budget is the selling and distribution budget. You should understand here one thing, that all expenses concerned with sale of products to customers are included in a budget, and that budget is called as the selling and distribution budget. Production budget thereafter lays down the quantity of units to be produced during the budget period. The main purpose of this budget is to maintain an optimum balance between sales, production, and inventory position of a firm. All these things are very important for every organization, because these are the basic jobs for every organization. Every organization should peep deeply into these aspects, because the long-term survival of the business depends upon these basic and minute aspects of the organization. Because we are going to touch each and every aspect, we are going to touch each and every side from the close distance, so that we are not going to make any kind of mistake in future. Because the problems of the organizations are never ending. For each aspect, if individually we look at, we find solutions are there. After production budget, students, now we look at another budget which is closely linked with this, that is the production cost budget. Production cost budget lays down the estimated cost of carrying out production plans, and it is further divided into three categories. These three categories in which the production cost budget is divided consists of, first of all, raw material budget, followed by labor budget, and above all, production overhead budget. I think there is no need to discuss these things individually, because these things are self-explanatory in nature, because raw material, labor, etc. are the important components of the total cost of production. Their role in that way becomes very important, and a most important thing, that what is being expended in organization is also to be taken into consideration. Well, friends, after the production cost budget, the next category of budget which is important from the organization's point of view is the capital expenditure budget. Capital expenditure budget points out the plans concerning investment, expansion, growth, etc. Capital expenditure budget, students, outlines specifically capital expenditure for plant, machinery, inventories, and other items required in day-to-day affairs of organization. Capital expenditure is the long-term expenditure. It is not incurred for any specific duration, because it is the expenditure which will be going to solve a lot of difficulties of the management. Well, because we are just not discussing all these things at length, otherwise discussion will remain incomplete. After capital expenditure budget, students, the important budget that you need to understand here is the cash budget. Now, I will tell you that it is the cash budget that gives you the estimate of cash receipts and payments for the budget period. In the beginning, I told you that there is a budget period, generally 1 year. So it indicates the requirement of cash at various points of time, and it also helps management in planning and arranging cash to meet the needs of the business concern. What is the requirement of the cash? What is the requirement of the cash? How much cash is required? This can all be done through the preparation of the cash budgets. Students, it is not only the cash for which we prepared a budget for a particular period of time. Because we all know that there are a number of other things which help management in planning and arranging things as per the needs of the business concern. Here is one more budget that I want to tell you about. It is the master budget, which we are referring earlier in our discussion. The master budget gives the summary of all the budgets and how they affect the business as a whole is shown in the master budget. That is why it was discussed earlier that there must be the use of the master budget, because it provides detailed particulars regarding production, sales, cash, assets, etc. That's why master budget is prepared. Students, I will feel that my discussion is incomplete if I do not discuss with you the zero-based budgeting. Zero-based budgeting, students, is also a kind of technique where the businessman takes into account the idea to divide enterprises programs into packages which are composed of the goals, activities, and needed resources, and then to calculate costs for each package from the ground up. By starting the budget of each package from base zero, budgeters calculate cost afresh for each period, each budget period. And it will make it possible that they avoid the common tendency in budgeting of looking only at the changes from the previous period. This is an important point. The management here will avoid a very common tendency of the organization in budgeting of looking only at changes from the previous period. That's why the zero-based budgeting, the idea behind the zero-based budgeting is to divide enterprise programs into packages which are composed of goals, activities, and needed resources, and then calculate the cost for each package from the ground up. Students, we should quickly have a look at the positive side and the negative side of the zero-based budgeting. The zero-based budgeting, students, is very advantageous because the different functional budgets clearly indicate the limits for expenses and also the results to be achieved in a given period. It coordinates the work of entire organization and it leads to cautious utilization of resources. If budgetary control, zero-based budgeting system is there, we can find that through the budgetary control, deviations from the predetermined standards are found out. You can see that the budgets help people learn from the past experiences. It brings together the activities of the various departments at one platform. Some people are against the idea of budgets. They have their own reasons. What they say, that budget is a kind of inaccurate estimates. I tell you, budgets are based on forecasts. Hence, the success depends on the accuracy of the forecast. By and large, the forecasts are not wrong. Predictions are not always wrong. But sometimes if these are wrong, then there will be inaccurate estimate, which is not in the interest of the institution. However, in the digital era, we don't expect that as such any kind of issue will arise. Plus, the people who are against the budgets, they also say that it is inflexible. And they say, because of the inflexibility, because they call budgets as the rigid exercise, they say that because of the rigidity, because of the inflexibility of the budgets do not respond to internal or external environment changes which take place in business world almost every day or other. Then there comes the human limitation. Human limitation simply means the cooperation of employees. You all must note here that the cooperation of employees is needed to make budgetary control successful. But it is not possible to have cooperation all the times. Because the organizations are basically heterogeneous. For making budgetary control effective or budgetary system effective, there is a need of homogeneity and homogeneity. It is the homogeneity where the cooperation of employees will be possible, where you will find that the budgetary control is successful. But otherwise, in general, there is a common practice that people don't want to have cooperation all the times. This is the human nature, for which we are not going to discuss or indulge into a discussion about. Fellow students, after discussing the budgetary control as an important mode of control the organization, now we look at a very important aspect which deals with the study of relationship between the cost, volume and profit. And this is the relationship between the cost, volume, profit, which is called popularly as a break-even analysis. It can be calculated just by a simple formula, that is the break-even point. I will tell you what is break-even point. Break-even point is equal to fixed cost upon selling price per product per unit minus variable cost per unit. Some people feel that sales volume at which there is no profit, no loss is known break-even point. And it is correct. That is why while calculating the break-even point, we take into consideration the break-even point always, because it determines the probable profit and losses at different levels of activity. So this is the break-even analysis which is done by the organizations, and it is considered as a traditional method of traditional technique of control in organization. Students, a cursory glance on one of the important aspects of the control lies in auditing also. Audit can be of two types, internal audit and external audit. Internal audit, students, is carried out by the members of the organization. Its objective is to provide reasonable assurance that the assets of organizations are properly safeguarded and its financial records reliably kept. This is the logic of the internal audit. The purpose here is to provide reasonable assurance that the assets are properly safeguarded and these are recorded in the financial records reliably. External audit, students, is conducted by the accounting personnel who are employed by an outside CP agency or by chartered accountants. Internal audit is largely a verification process, students, which involves the independent appraisal of organizations' financial accounts and statements. Now, after this important part, that is the auditing, now our next focus is on the financial ratio analysis. Friends, I believe you know the financial statements. You can think of the financial statements and you can think of what I want to tell you in the light of the financial statements, because you are in BCom and BCom level, you can understand what are financial statements. The financial statements show financial position of a firm over a period of time, generally 1 year. These are prepared along with the last year's statements. Why? Because the firm cannot compare its present performance with last year's performance and improve its future performance. This is a very important point, students. These financial statements are prepared with last year's statements due to the comparisons, to take the actions if required. A firm can compare its present performance with last year's performance and improve its future performance. That's why financial ratio analysis is done. Now, this financial ratio analysis is done through certain ratios. These ratios examine the relationship between the specific figures on the financial statements, and it helps explain the significance of those figures. To have a quick look of these ratios, we can see that those ratios which measure an organization's ability to generate cash is called or are called as the liquidity ratio. Those ratios which measures an organization's ability to generate profits, these are called as the profitability ratios. Those ratios which measure an organization's ability to pay its debts are called as debt ratios. The organization's efficiency in operations and use of assets is also measured, students. The measurement of an organization's efficiency in operations and use of assets is done through the use of activity ratios. Well, these are the different ratios which are used for the purpose of making the comparisons, making the assessment of the organization. Because we are now talking about the control mechanism. After the financial ratio analysis, students, now we have one more important technique which is called as the internal technique. It is the statistical data and report. Let me tell you one thing here in the beginning, that a report is a statement that represents data in the form of information for carrying out the controlling function. Statistical analysis in the form of advantages, percentages, ratios, etc. is done. Yani, you can say that the data can be used for diagrammatic representations like histograms, pie chart, bar graphs, etc. So in this way, we are able to exercise some control on the affairs of the organization. We can make the comparisons. We can find out what is going on in the organization through the statistical data and report. Students, in the traditional category of the techniques of control, one traditional type of example is the setting examples. Seems funny, but very meaningful, I tell you. Very closely linked with the personal observation kind of way. You can say one thing here, that the behavior and actions of subordinates can be controlled through exemplary behavior of the manager. It is old saying that example is better than precepts. In business world, what we come across on day-to-day basis is that some managers follow this and put good examples of performance before subordinates and expect the same from them in future too. That's why it is the setting examples, how they manage. Then comes the standard costing, students. I want to tell you about the standard costing, that it is one of the techniques of control. It is a technique of cost control, I tell you now. Because under this technique, standard cost of material, labor, overheads, etc. are determined. Actual costs are recorded and compared with the standard cost, and variances are found out. And then measures are taken to prevent variances in future. This is what is the standard costing, where the organizations make it possible to control the cost by way of making the comparisons. The actual costs and the standard costs are compared, and variations or variances are found out. And then once the variations are found out, then we can think of the mechanism, the machinery, the measures which are to be taken for decision making purposes in the organization. It's in the last thing in the list of the traditional type of control is the written instructions. These are the supplementary control techniques, I tell you. These instructions are issued time to time to the members of the organization